From California, Mr. McClintock, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the House leadership for its continuing commitment to restore the open appropriations process of the House. That process is absolutely essential if the House is to meet its constitutional responsibility to superintend the nation's finances. It assures that the people's elected representatives can provide the maximum scrutiny of every public expenditure. In the recent past, this process has given way to continuing resolutions that simply rubber stamp past federal spending, thus abrogating Congress's most fundamental fiscal responsibility. For this reason, I, for one, will not support any continuing resolutions of this nature. The regular order over the nation's finances must be reasserted, and the open appropriations process that has begun in the House this week does so. That process, though, is the final step in the procedures established to assure that our nation's spending gets careful examination. The first step in that process, and the most important step, is when programs are authorized or reauthorized. Legislation must first be adopted that establishes the programs for which money is subsequently appropriated. That is an absolutely critical function that assures federal programs are constantly being scrutinized and that Congress is asking, are these programs effective? Are they meeting their goals? Are they worthwhile? Are they worth the money we're paying? Most programs have time limits on them to assure that these questions are periodically asked. The legal authorization, then, is the green light to the Appropriations Committee to provide funding for that program. And for that reason, since 1835, the rules of the House have limited appropriations to only those purposes actually authorized by law. Unless and until the program is authorized, the House may not appropriate funds for it under this long-standing rule. And yet this rule is routinely ignored by the Appropriations Committee and by the House. Last year, the appropriations bills reported out of the committee contained over $350 billion for programs that had either never been authorized or whose authorizations had lapsed years and sometimes decades ago. Many of these are vital programs whose reauthorization should be routine, but many are not. For example, the Community Development Block Grant Program that paid for a doggy daycare center in Ohio and a day at the circus for Nyack, New York, lapsed 18 years ago, and yet every year we keep funding it lavishly. Most of the outrageous wastes of taxpayer money that end up in various pork reports stem from these lapsed programs. They're established, then they're forgotten, but the spending keeps on year after year. The excuse for this conduct is that the authorizing committees have simply failed to attend to their duties of keeping authorizations current, including for a number of critical functions, so the Appropriations Committee takes it upon itself to fund them. Well, what's to prevent this? The House rules allow any member the right to raise a point of order against any unauthorized expenditure, but this right is stripped from members every time an appropriations bill is sent to the House floor, making this rule meaningless and unenforceable. And it's now reached the point that more than one-third of the discretionary spending approved by the House is for purposes not authorized by law. This fact makes a mockery of the leadership's efforts to restore regular order to the appropriations process. I urge the Speaker of the House to direct the authorizing committees to bring the authorizations current for every program within their respective jurisdictions and to give them a year to do so. And if, after a full year, the authorizing committees don't believe the programs are worth the time to review, well, then maybe that's just nature's way of warning us that they're also not worth the money that we continue to shovel at them. And once the committees have had that year to review these unauthorized programs and to either renew them, reform them, or let them die, I urge the House to restore the right of every member to challenge unauthorized appropriations on the floor as our rules clearly envision and provide. Americans elected a House Republican majority with one clear mandate: stop wasting our money. To be worthy of that trust, we can't allow hundreds of billions of dollars to bypass the minimal congressional review that the authorizing process provides. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman